Put your hands where I can see them, and don't reach for that fake badge. Officer Travis Cole's voice cut across the rain-slick parking lot as Special Agent Naomi Brooks stood beside her dark sedan with 2 police cruisers blocking the exit. Red and blue light slid across the diner windows, turning every face behind the glass into a silent witness. Naomi raised her hands slowly, palms open, her breathing controlled. "I'm a federal agent," she said. Cole stepped closer, took the leather credential case from her fingertips, and stared at the gold seal for half a second before laughing. "FBI," he said loudly enough for the gathering crowd to hear. "Sure you are." What Cole did not know was that Naomi had been watching him for 8 months, and the small black button on her coat had already recorded every word. He tossed the badge onto the wet pavement. It landed face up in a shallow puddle, the federal seal shining beneath the ripples. Naomi did not look down. She looked at her watch. 2 minutes and 43 seconds remained before her confidential source would leave the diner forever. For more stories where truth rises above prejudice, subscribe and stay with us, because the man mocking Naomi's badge was about to discover why she had come to this neighborhood in the first place. Naomi Brooks did not resemble the agents Cole had seen on television. She wore no tactical vest, no dark sunglasses, and no visible weapon. Just a charcoal coat, practical shoes, and the quiet posture of someone trained to notice what everyone else missed. 10 yards behind Cole stood his younger partner, Officer Ryan Mercer, whose hand hovered near his radio as uncertainty tightened his expression. "Run the identification number," Naomi said. Her voice was low, but it carried through the rain. Cole glanced at the badge in the puddle, then back at her. "I don't take orders from suspects." "Then consider it a suggestion that may protect your career." A few people near the diner entrance lifted their phones. Cole noticed and turned sharply. "Stop recording. This is an active investigation." Naomi's eyes moved past him toward the front window. Elena Ruiz, the accountant who had agreed to expose a missing weapons operation, sat in the corner booth clutching a white coffee cup. She had been instructed to wait exactly 3 minutes for Naomi's signal. If the signal did not come, she would assume the meeting was compromised and disappear. Naomi checked her watch again. 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Then she saw a man in a gray baseball cap enter the diner through the side door. He did not look at the menu. He looked directly at Elena. "Officer Cole," Naomi said, keeping her hands raised, "a protected federal witness is in immediate danger inside that building." Cole's confident smile vanished for less than a second. He turned toward the side door before catching himself. That single reflex told Naomi more than any confession could have. He knew there was a witness. He knew where she was sitting. And now, judging by the fear replacing the mockery in his eyes, he knew Naomi was not lying about the badge. Naomi kept her eyes on Cole, but her attention remained fixed on the diner window behind him. Elena Ruiz had lowered the coffee cup. Her shoulders were tense, and the man in the gray baseball cap was moving closer to her booth with the patience of someone who did not want to be noticed. Naomi had learned to recognize that kind of patience years ago, long before the bureau gave her a badge. She had grown up in West Baltimore, where her father drove a city bus and her mother worked overnight shifts at a hospital laundry. Her parents taught her to stay calm when a room became unfair, to speak clearly when others expected anger, and to remember that dignity was not something another person could grant or remove. At 16, Naomi had watched her father spend an hour seated on a curb because an officer decided he matched a vague description. He had been wearing his transit uniform. His identification had been clipped to his shirt. None of it mattered until someone finally checked. That memory had followed Naomi through college, through the Federal Academy, and through 11 years of investigations. It was why she never mistook authority for judgment, and why she never assumed a badge would make prejudice disappear. Cole stepped closer. Rain collected along the brim of his cap and fell in slow drops onto his shoulder. "You expect me to believe a federal agent came out here alone?" he asked. "I expect you to verify my credentials," Naomi replied. Mercer shifted beside the second cruiser. He looked down at the badge in the puddle, then toward Cole. "We could call it in," he said carefully. Cole did not look at him. "We are not wasting dispatch time on a costume." Naomi heard the words, but she was watching the reflection in the diner glass. The man in the gray cap had stopped 3 feet from Elena's table. Elena's right hand moved toward the purse beside her. That was not part of the plan. She was scared. 1 minute and 46 seconds remained. Naomi lowered her voice. Officer Mercer, the number on the back connects directly to the Federal Verification Desk. Use your department phone. Do not use any number I give you. Mercer's eyes narrowed, not with suspicion now, but concentration. That detail mattered. A person carrying false credentials would usually offer a number designed to support the lie. Naomi was asking him to rely on his own system. Cole recognized the change in his partner and moved between Mercer and the badge. She is controlling the scene, he said. That is what trained impersonators do. Naomi noticed the strain beneath his confidence. He was no longer trying to embarrass her. He was trying to delay the call. The difference was small, but clear. Why did you stop me? She asked. Cole's jaw tightened. We received a report of a suspicious person. What was the description? He said nothing. The rain tapped softly against the cruiser roof. Behind the glass, Elena stood from the booth. The man in the gray cap turned with her. Naomi's pulse rose, but her face remained still. 1 minute and 9 seconds. The description, she repeated. Mercer looked at Cole. Who called it in? Cole reached for his radio, but did not press the button. Naomi saw the answer in that hesitation. There had been no call. No witness. No dispatch report. Cole had been waiting for her. He knew the meeting place, and he had arrived before Naomi could reach Elena. The stop had never been random. Naomi turned her gaze back to the diner window just as Elena looked toward her through the rain-streaked glass. Their eyes met for half a second. Elena understood. She stepped away from the man in the gray cap and moved toward the front counter where other customers could see her. Naomi breathed once, slow and steady. Cole had tried to make her look powerless, but he had already revealed the one thing she came to learn. He was not protecting the neighborhood from a stranger. He was protecting himself from the truth. Cole's hand stayed near his radio, but he still did not call dispatch. That silence changed everything. Mercer looked from his partner to Naomi, then toward the diner, where Elena had reached the front counter and placed herself beneath the brightest ceiling light. The man in the gray baseball cap stopped several feet behind her, pretending to study a menu board he had not looked at once since entering. Naomi counted the details without moving her head. Cole had arrived without a verified call. He had blocked the parking lot before asking a question. He had refused to inspect her credentials. Now he was standing between Mercer and the badge as though a simple phone call frightened him more than any possible suspect. Step away from the vehicle, Cole ordered. Naomi remained beside the sedan, hands visible. I am already standing away from it. Then move toward the cruiser. Why? His eyes hardened. Because I told you to. The answer came too quickly, too comfortably. Cole was a man accustomed to obedience arriving before explanation. His uniform was neat, his boots polished, and his voice carried the practiced certainty of someone who had rarely been challenged by the people he stopped. For years, complaints against him had been reduced to misunderstandings, missing footage, or conflicting statements. He had learned that authority could cover many gaps if spoken loudly enough. But Naomi did not raise her voice. She did not argue for the crowd. She watched him with the steady attention of an investigator studying a door that had finally opened. Officer Cole, she said, you knew which car was mine before I touched it. Mercer turned slightly. Cole's expression did not change, but the muscle along his jaw tightened. We watched you leave the diner. I never entered the diner. Rainwater ran along the side of the cruiser and gathered beneath the rear tire. For one brief second, no one moved. Mercer looked toward the restaurant again, replaying the last few minutes. Naomi had approached from the far end of the lot. Cole had driven directly across her path before she reached the sedan. There had been no conversation, no request for identification, and no description over the radio. Only certainty. Travis, Mercer said quietly, what exactly were we responding to? Cole turned on him. Do not lose focus because she knows how to talk. I am asking for the call details. You will get them later. Naomi checked her watch. 48 seconds remained. Inside, Elena glanced toward the side exit. The man in the gray cap shifted with her. Naomi could not warn Elena without exposing their connection, but she could keep Cole talking. Every second he spent trying to control the scene was another second captured by the camera in her coat. "Your partner deserves an answer," Naomi said. Cole stepped closer, lowering his voice so the crowd would not hear. "You think that badge makes you untouchable?" "No," Naomi replied. "I think the truth makes you nervous." His eyes flicked toward her coat button. It was a small movement, almost invisible, but Naomi saw recognition. Cole knew about concealed recording devices. More importantly, he knew where to look. He reached toward her lapel, then stopped when several phones in the crowd tilted in his direction. Mercer noticed. "Do not touch her," he said. The words were calm, but they landed with weight. Cole turned slowly. "What did you say?" "I said we verify first." Mercer stepped around him and crouched near the badge. Cole moved to block him again, but this time Mercer did not retreat. He lifted the credential case from the puddle and wiped the back with his sleeve. The engraved number caught the rotating blue light. Naomi looked through the diner window. Elena was still at the counter. The man in the gray cap had taken out his phone. 27 seconds. Mercer reached for his department-issued handset. Cole's confidence finally cracked. "Ryan, put that down." Mercer stared at the verification number, then at the fear in his partner's face. "Why?" he asked. Cole had commanded the entire scene until that moment. Now, with one question and one phone call between him and the truth, he had no answer. Mercer held the department phone in one hand and Naomi's wet credentials in the other. Cole stared at him as though the younger officer had crossed an invisible line. "Put the phone away," Cole said. Mercer did not move. "Give me one reason." The rain had softened, but the parking lot felt tighter than before. Every flashing light reflected twice, once on the blacktop and once in the diner windows. Naomi watched the man in the gray cap raise his phone to his ear. Elena stood near the register, pretending to study a display of wrapped pastries while keeping several customers between herself and him. 14 seconds remained on Naomi's watch. "Officer Mercer," Naomi said, "do not call the local dispatch desk." Cole turned sharply toward her. "You do not tell him what to do. Use the federal verification number engraved on the credential. Ask for Special Agent Naomi Brooks, Baltimore Field Office, Violent Crime and Public Corruption Task Force." Mercer looked down at the badge. The information was precise, testable, and offered without hesitation. Cole stepped between them again. "She has memorized a script." "That proves nothing." Naomi met his eyes. "Then the call should prove I am lying." Cole's mouth opened, but no answer came. Behind him, the men in the gray cap started walking toward Elena. Naomi could no longer afford to wait. "The men inside the diner," she said. Gray cap, navy jacket, standing near the front counter. "He is approaching a protected witness." Mercer glanced through the glass. Cole did not. That refusal confirmed what Naomi already knew. "How would you know that?" Mercer asked. "Because I came here to meet her." Cole gave a short laugh that carried no humor. "So now there is a secret witness." "There has been a federal investigation for 8 months, Naomi said. "Someone has been removing seized firearms from police. Evidence storage and selling them through private brokers. The witness inside traced the altered inventory records." Mercer's face changed. He had heard rumors about missing property reports, but every internal inquiry had ended without findings. Cole took one step closer to Naomi. "You are done talking." "No," she said quietly. "You are done delaying." The words landed without anger, and that made them harder to dismiss. Naomi shifted her gaze toward the diner. Elena had reached the register. The cashier, an older man wearing a red apron, noticed her distress and moved beside her. The man in the gray cap stopped again, unwilling to approach with witnesses watching. The timer on Naomi's watch reached 0. At that exact moment, the small device in her coat vibrated once. The recording had uploaded. Everything Cole had said, every refusal, every glance toward the diner, was now stored on a secure federal server. Naomi released a slow breath. The operation had not failed. It had changed. What was that? Cole asked. What was what? Your coat moved. He reached toward her lapel. Naomi stepped back, keeping her hands visible. Do not interfere with federal evidence. Cole froze. Mercer raised his voice for the first time. Travis, stop. Several people near the diner entrance moved closer together, their phones still recording. Cole looked around and seemed to realize the scene no longer belonged to him. His commands were no longer ending questions. His uniform was no longer silencing doubt. Mercer pressed the verification number into the department phone. Cole reached for his radio. Central, I need a supervisor at my location. Naomi watched his thumb. He had selected a private channel, not the main dispatch frequency. That is not Central, she said. Cole's eyes lifted. Mercer heard it too. Instead of a dispatcher's voice, a man answered with a single question. Is she contained? Cole ended the transmission immediately, but the words had already crossed the wet parking lot. Mercer stared at him. Naomi did not. She looked through the diner window, where the man in the gray cap had also lowered his phone. The two men had received the same warning, and neither of them knew the entire exchange was still being recorded. Mercer kept the department phone raised, but his eyes were no longer on the verification number. They were fixed on Cole. The question from the private radio channel still hung between them. Is she contained? Rainwater slid from the edge of the cruiser roof and tapped against the pavement with the slow precision of a clock. Cole lifted his chin and tried to recover the authority in his voice. That was a tactical supervisor checking the scene. Then identify him, Mercer said. Name and unit. Cole ignored the request. He turned toward Naomi instead. Face the vehicle. Naomi did not move. For what reason? Interfering with an investigation. Whose investigation? Cole stepped closer. His expression had lost the easy mockery from moments earlier. What remained was calculation. He needed her quiet. He needed Mercer obedient. He needed the crowd uncertain. Turn around, he repeated. Naomi looked through the diner window. The man in the gray cap had stopped near the register, but he was watching Cole through the glass. Elena stood beside the cashier, her purse held tightly against her coat. She had not left. That mattered. Naomi lowered her hands just enough to keep them visible and reached slowly toward the phone in her coat pocket. Cole reacted at once. Do not reach. My device is already transmitting, Naomi said. Taking it will not stop the upload. Mercer looked at her. What upload? Audio, location data, and the private radio exchange. Cole's face went still. Naomi saw the answer before he spoke. She is bluffing. Then there is nothing to fear, she replied. Cole moved around her and pulled the phone from the outer pocket of her coat. The screen showed a countdown with 40 seconds remaining. A small white line moved across the bottom beneath the words Secure Transfer in Progress. Cole stared at it. What happens when this reaches 0? The file finishes syncing to a federal evidence server. He pressed the side button. The screen went dark. Naomi remained calm. That only locks the display. Cole pressed it again, harder, then tried to force a restart. The countdown returned. 32 seconds. Mercer took one step toward him. Give her the phone. Cole turned sharply. Back off. We should verify her identity and secure the witness she identified. There is no witness. Naomi looked toward the diner. Then why did the men on your private channel ask whether I was contained? Cole's grip tightened around the phone. 24 seconds. He glanced at the side entrance of the diner. The man in the gray cap saw the look and moved toward the door. Elena noticed and stepped behind the counter. The cashier reached for the wall phone. Naomi spoke without raising her voice. Officer Mercer, call the diner and tell the cashier to lock both doors. Mercer immediately used his department handset. Cole reached for his arm, but Mercer stepped away. I am protecting civilians, he said. The diner phone rang. The cashier answered, listened for 3 seconds, then turned the lock beneath the front handle. The man in the gray cap stopped inside the doorway. His reflection appeared between the red and blue lights on the glass, trapped by the decision he had made too late. 12 seconds remained. Cole looked at Naomi's phone, then at the locked diner, then toward the open road beyond the cruisers. For the first time, Naomi saw him consider leaving. "Running will not help you," she said. "I am not running." "You looked at the only exit." 6 seconds. Mercer finished dialing the federal verification number. A recorded greeting identified the Department of Justice credential desk. Cole heard it and went pale. 3 seconds. Naomi's phone vibrated in his hand. The countdown vanished and was replaced by a single message. "Transfer complete." Cole stared at the screen as if the words had taken something from him. In truth, they had. The moment he had tried to erase was now beyond his reach. Mercer held his phone to his ear while a federal operator answered. Naomi kept her voice level. "Tell them my name, my office, and that Agent Brooks is being detained at the Harbor View Diner." Cole looked up. In the distance, beyond the low buildings and wet traffic lights, the first dark vehicles turned onto the street. The dark vehicles approached without sirens, their headlights stretching across the wet pavement in long white bands. Cole saw them and slipped Naomi's phone into his jacket pocket as though hiding it could still change what had already happened. Mercer remained on the line with the federal operator, his voice careful and exact. "Special Agent Naomi Brooks, Baltimore Field Office, Harbor View Diner, East Parking Lot." He listened, then looked directly at Naomi. "They confirmed your identity." Cole turned toward him. "End the call." Mercer did not. "They are asking whether you are being restrained." Naomi glanced at Cole. The answer rested in the rigid set of his shoulders and the hand hovering near the restraints on his belt. He had not placed them on her yet, but he was still trying to decide whether authority could outrun evidence. "Tell them I am standing beside my vehicle," Naomi said. "Tell them Officer Cole has taken my federal credentials and my phone." Mercer repeated every word. The rain thinned into mist, settling on Naomi's coat and cooling the skin beneath her collar. For the first time since the cruisers blocked the lot, the scene became strangely quiet. No one behind the diner glass spoke. The people recording lowered their phones slightly, sensing that the moment had shifted from spectacle to consequence. Inside, Elena remained behind the counter. The men in the gray cap stood near the locked door, staring at the approaching vehicles. The older cashier kept one hand on the wall phone and the other near the deadbolt. Cole looked toward the diner, then toward the road, measuring distances that no longer offered him an advantage. "This can still be handled locally," he said. Naomi heard the weakness beneath the statement. "It stopped being local when you interfered with a federal witness. You never identified her." "You did." Cole's eyes narrowed. "I did no such thing." "You looked directly at her when I said witness. You answered a private call asking whether I was contained. Then the men inside received a call at the same moment." Mercer lowered the department phone. The federal operator had stayed connected, and every word was now being heard beyond the parking lot. "Travis," Mercer said. "Quietly, give her back the phone and the credentials." Cole glanced at him. "You are making a mistake." "Then help me correct it." "Give them back." Cole did not move. Naomi could feel her pulse in her fingertips, but her breathing stayed slow. She had been trained for rooms filled with shouting, for interviews built on lies, and for the dangerous seconds when a guilty person realized control was slipping away. This was not the time to press harder. It was the time to let silence do the work. A drop of water fell from Cole's sleeve onto the blacktop. Another struck the metal edge of Naomi's badge case, still held in Mercer's hand. The sound was small, almost delicate. Naomi looked at the gold seal beneath the film of rain. Minutes earlier, Cole had laughed at it because he believed the woman holding it could not possibly possess authority greater than his own. Now the badge had become the least important evidence in the lot. His choices had spoken more clearly. The first dark vehicle entered the parking lot and stopped behind the cruisers. A second blocked the eastern exit. A third remained near the street. Doors opened, and federal agents stepped out wearing plain jackets with identification visible at their chests. Assistant Special Agent in Charge Daniel Reeves emerged from the lead vehicle. His silver hair was damp from the mist, and his expression was controlled as he surveyed the scene. He saw Naomi first. Then he saw Cole holding her phone. "Agent Brooks," Reeves called, using the title with deliberate clarity, "are you secure?" Naomi kept her eyes on Cole. "The witness is secure for now. My evidence is not." Reeves nodded once. Several agents moved toward the diner while two others approached the officers. Cole looked around at the federal badges, the recording phones, Mercer's unsettled face, and the credential case shining beneath the patrol lights. The confidence that had filled his voice was gone. In its place was the quiet understanding that no order he gave could return the last few minutes to him. Reeves stopped 6 feet from Cole and held out one hand. "Return Agent Brooks's property." Cole did not respond. The federal agents near the diner had already identified Elena and moved her away from the front windows, while another agent stood beside the man in the gray cap and instructed him to remain where he was. No one raised a voice. No one needed to. The parking lot had become orderly in a way Cole's commands had never achieved. Mercer looked at his partner, waiting for him to make the one sensible choice still available. At last, Cole removed Naomi's phone from his jacket and placed it in Reeves's hand. "I secured it during a lawful stop," he said. Reeves examined the screen, then passed it to Naomi. "And the credentials?" Mercer stepped forward and offered the wet badge case. Naomi accepted it carefully. Water had gathered inside the leather seam, but the gold seal remained bright beneath the patrol lights. She wiped it once with her thumb. Cole watched the motion and tried to recover the story he had controlled only minutes earlier. "We received information that someone was impersonating a federal officer." Mercer turned toward him. There was no dispatch call. It came through a confidential source. "On the private channel?" Naomi asked. Cole looked at her, then away. Reeves held up a small receiver connected to his earpiece. The credential desk recorded Officer Mercer's verification call. The secure server also received Agent Brooks's audio transfer. Cole's face tightened. "Then you heard that she interfered with police activity?" "We heard you refuse to verify her identity," Reeves said. "We heard an unknown man ask whether she was contained. We heard you attempt to stop your partner from contacting federal authorities." The words were delivered without anger, each one placed like a document on a table. Cole glanced toward the diner. The man in the gray cap had been escorted outside and now stood beside an unmarked vehicle. Elena remained near the counter with two agents, wrapped in a gray emergency blanket the cashier had found in a storage cabinet. She looked shaken, but safe. Naomi felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. The witness had stayed. The evidence had transferred. The operation was still alive. Cole saw Elena and made his first serious mistake. "You do not understand what she knows about the warehouse." The parking lot went still. Mercer stared at him. Reeves did not blink. Naomi lowered her badge. "What warehouse?" Cole realized too late that no one had mentioned one. He looked toward Mercer as if expecting help, but the younger officer's expression had changed from uncertainty to disbelief. "Travis," Mercer said, "what warehouse?" Cole said nothing. Naomi stepped closer, though she kept a respectful distance. "The location connected to the missing evidence inventory?" she asked. "I never said that." "You just did." Cole shook his head. "You are twisting my words." Naomi glanced at Reeves. "My partner already sent us the warehouse location." Cole's eyes moved instantly toward the man in the gray cap. The reaction lasted less than a second, but it was enough. "He could not have," Cole said. "Only Blake has the address." Mercer inhaled sharply. Reeves touched his earpiece and spoke to the agents near the vehicles. "Notify the task force. Captain Howard Blake is now a named subject. Trace the private channel and the last outgoing call from the graycap suspect." Cole looked at Naomi as understanding finally reached him. There had been no message from Mercer. No discovered address. Naomi had offered a false certainty, and his fear had supplied the truth. The federal agents moved with quiet purpose, entering vehicles and relaying information. Naomi stood beneath the fading rain, her credentials secure in her hand. Cole had mocked the badge because he believed it was the source of her authority. He understood now that the badge had never trapped him. His own certainty had. Reeves gave a quiet signal, and 2 federal agents stepped toward Cole. The movement was calm, measured, and final. Cole looked from one face to another as if someone might still accept his version of events, but the parking lot had already moved beyond belief and into evidence. "Officer Travis Cole," Reeves said, "you are being detained pending investigation for obstruction of a federal operation, interference with a protected witness, and suspected involvement in the theft of seized property." Cole's eyes shifted toward Mercer. "You know me. Tell them this is a misunderstanding." Mercer stood beside the second cruiser, rain darkening the shoulders of his uniform. For years, he had trusted the men beside him to know the rules, to understand the streets, and to recognize danger before it reached them. Now he understood that Cole had not recognized danger in Naomi. He had recognized exposure. "I know what I heard," Mercer said. "And I know there was no call from dispatch." Cole's expression hardened. "You are choosing her over your own partner." Mercer looked at Naomi, then at the badge Cole had thrown into the water. "I am choosing the truth." The answer seemed to remove the last argument Cole had left. One agent instructed him to place his hands behind his back. Cole complied slowly, his gaze fixed on Naomi. The soft click of the restraints carried across the wet pavement. Minutes earlier, he had stood in the same place deciding whether to restrain her without cause. Now the metal closed around his wrists because of choices he had made in front of witnesses, cameras, and his own partner. Naomi did not smile. She felt no triumph in the sight of him being led toward an unmarked vehicle. Justice was not humiliation returned in equal measure. It was the moment power stopped protecting a lie. Near the diner entrance, the man in the gray cap was also placed in restraints after agents recovered a department access card and a phone containing messages from Captain Howard Blake. One message included directions to an abandoned freight warehouse 7 miles west of the harbor. Another warned that the federal witness had arrived. Reeves listened to an update through his earpiece, then turned toward Naomi. "The task force has the location. Blake is on his way there now. He will know something changed," Naomi said. Cole's private channel went silent. "The warehouse team is already moving." Elena stepped outside with an agent beside her. The gray emergency blanket rested around her shoulders, and her hands still trembled, but she walked directly toward Naomi. "I thought you were not coming," she said. "I was here," Naomi replied. "I just could not reach you." Elena looked toward Cole, who was being placed into the rear seat of a federal vehicle. He knew about the records. He confirmed more than that. Naomi's voice remained gentle. "Your evidence gave us the pattern. His fear gave us the location." Elena lowered her eyes, absorbing the weight of what had happened. Mercer approached them slowly. He had removed his patrol cap, and the rain rested in his hair. "Agent Brooks," he said, "I should have checked the badge immediately." Naomi studied him for a moment. He had followed Cole's lead too long, but when the truth became visible, he had chosen to verify it. That choice did not erase the earlier silence, but it mattered. "You should have," she said. Mercer nodded, accepting the answer without defense. "I will turn over the dash camera footage, the private channel logs, and every report connected to Cole." "Tell the complete truth," Naomi said. "Not the version that protects you. The complete one." Mercer looked toward his former partner, then back at her. "I will." Reeves joined them and informed Mercer that he would be interviewed separately and placed on administrative leave pending review. Naomi added that his cooperation should be documented. Cole heard her from several feet away. He looked surprised, perhaps expecting revenge where she offered fairness. Naomi met his eyes only once. "You saw my skin before you checked my credentials," she said. "But that is not why you are in restraints. You are there because of what you chose to protect." Cole lowered his gaze. Beyond him, federal vehicles began leaving for the warehouse, their tires whispering over the rain-covered pavement. The operation was no longer hidden, the witness was no longer alone, and the authority Cole had abused could no longer shield him from the truth. By the time the rain stopped, the parking lot no longer looked like the place where Naomi had been surrounded and dismissed. The patrol lights were gone. The crowd had thinned. Only the diner windows remained bright against the wet street, reflecting a quieter kind of truth. Reeves received the final update just before midnight. Federal agents had reached the freight warehouse before Captain Howard Blake could remove the records. Inside, they found sealed evidence crates, altered inventory files, and financial ledgers connecting Blake, Cole, and several private buyers to the missing property operation. Elena's documents matched every shipment. Her testimony completed the chain. The investigation that had nearly disappeared behind closed doors was now impossible to bury. Cole and the men in the gray cap were taken into federal custody. Blake was arrested at the warehouse and later charged with conspiracy, obstruction, and theft of government property. The department opened an independent review of every complaint previously filed against Cole, including reports that had been dismissed without full investigation. Mercer surrendered his body camera footage, radio logs, and patrol records. He told investigators exactly what had happened, including the moment he chose silence before choosing the truth. Weeks later, he testified before a federal grand jury. He did not describe himself as a hero. He said only that he had waited too long to ask the simplest question. Naomi stood outside the diner after Elena had been moved to a secure location. The night air smelled of wet asphalt and coffee drifting through the open door. Reeves offered her a clean towel for her credentials, but she shook her head and used the edge of her sleeve instead. Mud had settled into the leather case. The gold seal beneath it was untouched. "You could replace that," Reeves said. Naomi looked down at the badge. "No," she replied. "I think I will keep it this way." Across the lot, Mercer waited beside an internal affairs vehicle. Before leaving, he walked toward her one final time. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if I had never made that call," he said. Naomi closed the credential case. "Then do not stop thinking about it." He lowered his eyes. She continued, not with anger, but with the steadiness that had carried her through the entire night. "The next person may not have a federal number you can call. They may not have a camera recording everything. They may only have their word." Mercer nodded slowly. "Then I need to listen before I decide who they are." Naomi looked toward the diner, where the cashier was wiping rain marks from the glass. That would be a beginning. Several months later, Elena entered a federal courtroom through a private entrance and told the truth under oath. Her testimony helped secure convictions against the officers and brokers involved in the operation. The recovered property was returned to evidence custody under new safeguards, and the department adopted mandatory external verification procedures for encounters involving federal credentials. Those reforms could not erase what had happened, but they made it harder for the same choices to hide behind routine authority. Naomi returned to work without requesting recognition. She refused interviews and declined the ceremony the field office offered her. What mattered to her was simpler. Elena was safe. The evidence was secure. The truth had survived the people who tried to silence it. One evening, Naomi placed the stained badge inside her desk drawer beside a photograph of her father wearing his old transit uniform. The two objects rested side by side beneath the warm light of the desk lamp. One represented authority. The other reminded her why authority must always be questioned when it forgets humanity. Naomi closed the drawer and turned off the lamp. Outside, the city moved beneath a clear sky, unaware of how close one quiet act of prejudice had come to protecting something far larger. The final lesson was not that a powerful badge had saved Naomi. It was that her composure, preparation, and refusal to surrender the truth had exposed men who believed power made them untouchable. A uniform can command attention, but character determines what a person does with that attention. And when authority judges someone before hearing them, the greatest danger may not be the mistake itself, but everything that mistake is trying to protect. So what would you have done in Mercer's place, followed your partner's orders, or risked your career to verify the truth?